Hi everybody, thanks so much for joining us today on Facebook Live for a tour of the Placer County Museum's Division Artifact and Collections Storage. My name is Kelsey Monahan. I'm the curator of archives here. Jason Adair, our exhibit designer, is helping me today behind the camera. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the comments and I'll try to have him read them out loud. But if in case I miss you, you can also find my contact information on our website, www.placer.ca.gov/museums. So welcome to the Placer County Museum's archive and collection facility. Here we have, it's split into two focuses: the objects, which are more of the three-dimensional collections managed by our curator of collections, and then our archives managed by me, which as the official repository for the historic Placer County records. It's a lot of county records, but it's also photographs, newspapers, and other paper material. So let's get started. Come on in. So here at Placer County Museums, the mission of our division is to preserve the county's rich historical and cultural legacy. We oversee seven, soon to be eight museums in the county. We have 4 here in Auburn: the Placer County Museum at the historic courthouse, the Gold Rush Museum, the Bernhardt Museum, and the DeWitt History Museum. We also have the Golden Drift Museum in Dutch Flat, the Forest Hill Divide Museum in Forest Hill, and the Griffith Corey Museum in Penryn. Our newest museum, set to open next year, is the historic Fruitvale Schoolhouse in Lincoln, so keep an eye out for that. But now we're gonna head on over to storage. So our building is located in the DeWitt Government Center in North Auburn. These buildings were originally constructed as the DeWitt General Hospital, a military hospital during World War II. But once the war was over, it became the DeWitt State Mental Hospital, which remained until the 1970s when the county bought it and turned it into government offices. So our first stop today will be here in one of our map rooms. We have almost 3,000, I believe, maps in our collection, which include subdivision maps, mining maps, railroad maps, town site maps, surveys, and many more. Just to give you a glimpse, here we have a hand-drawn map of mines in Iowa Hill, which Iowa Hill is just east of Colfax and north of Forest Hill. Now we'll head over to the next room. Small room. Over here we have the furniture room, which holds a lot of our great collections of not only furniture but other large items. We also have an off-site storage facility for our very large objects. But over here on this side of the room, we have our probate file collection, which is part of our county court collection. They cover the years 1851 to roughly 1960, and probate files were created after someone died. It records the distribution of their estate, but they are very great for genealogy research because they often list the descendants and family of the deceased, and they also, if you're researching property, kind of detail who their property went to if you're trying to determine a chain of title for property. So they are a really great resource. Okay, so now we're going to head into the stacks. We're going to first stop over here at just a small portion of our newspaper records. These are the Auburn Journal from 1920 to 1976. We have older issues of the Auburn Journal, as well as the Placer Herald, Placer Argus, Placer County Leader, Placer County Republican, Colfax Record, the Roseville Press Tribune, and more. Most are in this bound format, but we also have a lot on microfilm. So now we're going to come over to our beautiful high density storage shelves that we love so much. This is where we store most of our records. We have county records here, but also archival material donated by private individuals. That can include, correspondence, manuscripts, school records, and more. But we also have records relating to businesses in Placer County. Right there we have the Auburn Hotel Register, which was once on Lincoln Way in Auburn. So we're gonna keep going in the stacks to the bulk of our county generated records. They occupy more than 7 shelves here in storage, and there are records relating to property. We have Department of Education, assessment rolls, and like I said, court records. A fun fact about our county records is that a large amount of them now are searchable on our digital collections website. We have deed records, official records, homestead records, land claims, and mining records, all available for research online. No appointment needed. So a link to that is on our website, but be sure to check it out. And we'll keep going on our tour. So like I mentioned, a large part of our collection are county court records. So we have the probate files that we saw earlier, but we also have the county court, court of sessions, district court, and superior court files. A bulk of them are 1851 to 1925, but we also have some later years. And we also have minute books, judgment books, and naturalization records. So there's a great collection. But now we're gonna go check out the vault. So here's what we call the vault. It is where we store fragile and more sensitive objects and items because it's a smaller space that can maintain a slightly lower temperature more easily. For objects, this includes basketry, fragile objects, and then also for security, we have some firearms. For the archives, we store sensitive records and microfiche in here that might contain personally identifiable information, as well as fragile photograph collections. And we also have photograph storage here, but throughout the stacks, because it's a very large collection that grows every year. Here's one example of our photograph storage. Our photos include daguerreotypes, negatives, prints, slides, and also some digital only images or photographs. We're working really hard right now to try to get these online soon so that they can be more accessible to the public. Oh, so now we're gonna head to our last stop. Here's some more object storage, some beautiful items, more high-density mobile shelving. And then back here is a collections workspace, but today I thought it might be interesting to show you how our archival records can kind of give us some insight into individuals that lived here in Placer County. And so today I've chosen to highlight Abby Banvard. Abby was born in Illinois in 1833 as Abby Shirtliff. She married Edgar Banvard in 1851. And shortly after they got married, Edgar came here to California, tried his hand at farming in Alameda, but eventually made his way up here to Auburn, where he, through a series of connections, became the deputy county treasurer here for Placer County. Abby came and joined him in 1856, and then they built and operated the Stonehouse Tavern in Auburn. But what I'm going to focus on is when they moved to Alta in 1866 and bought the hotel there. This is an illustration of Banvard's Hotel in Alta, taken from the 1882 history of Placer County. We also have some lovely photographs of Alta, some general views, but also a photo taken outside the hotel's bar room. So moving to looking at our deed records, here is the deed transaction where E.M. Banvard buys the depot buildings in Alta, which include the beds, bedstands, and bedding on hand, which I believe would have been considered the hotel portion of the depot buildings at the time. We also have newspaper accounts of the Banvards operating the Banvard Hotel or Alta Hotel. So we know at this time that they were operating it. So sometime later, here I've pulled a district court case file. Let me get my details straight. In May of 1879, a suit was filed against Edgar for unpaid debts. It appears that the court ruled in favor of the plaintiffs, which meant that some of Edgar's personal property had to be sold via a sheriff's sale, which is kind of sad for Edgar, but great for us because we get to see, it looks like he sold the contents of the hotel. So we kind of get a little glimpse into what was in the hotel. We can see here there were barroom fixtures. Later we see that there were at least 13 rooms, and it even had like a parlor and a dining room. So that's kind of interesting. What's even more interesting to me is that same month and that same year, Abby Banvard filed in the county court system. I have her file here, to become a sole trader. And sole traders or declarations of married women were from an 1852 California statute that made it possible for married women to conduct business separately from their husbands. The declaration would be printed in the local paper for 3 consecutive weeks. But at the end of the recording and publishing, the woman could conduct her own business, and the property and revenue of the business would be solely her own, and she would not be liable for the debts of her husband. So yeah, it's interesting timing about the same month that Edgar was sued or had a suit against him for his debts. But in Abby's file, she says that she will carry on and conduct upon her own account the business of hotel keeping at said Alta, and also the buying and selling of real property in mines and conducting in the business of mining at said Placer County. So a deep dive is needed to fully understand all of the business transactions that Abby conducted as a sole trader. But we can see here in this undated map that we can see her name here, A. Banvard, for Abby Banvard, that she owned a property near Toll. So we do know that she owned property in her name at one time. Yeah. So moving along to our newspaper records, we find out that sadly the Banvard Hotel burnt down in 1897. It is listed here in this small item about news from Alta and Toll. So the hotel burned down, and sadly, I guess a delegation from Toll had gone to see the ashes of the hotel. So that was a news item. It doesn't seem that they ever fully rebuilt the hotel. There was a smaller hotel after this time, but it would make sense because Abby was 64 at this time and Edgar would have been 77. So if they were still running the hotel, they probably wouldn't want to continue at their age. So yeah, so that was the end of the Banvard's Hotel. Edgar passed away in 1905 and Abby passed away in 1913. I don't have it out here, but from her obituary, we learned that she had two sons, Louis Banvard and Charles Banvard. And it said that the Banvard's Hotel was one of the best stopping places along the route. So we get to learn a little bit more about her life there. And so now we'll move to the probate file for Abby. At the time of her death, she owned property known as the Banvard Ranch and Orchard, which was 315 acres, as well as other property that was divided amongst her sons, Louis and Charles. So at the time of her death, she still owned a lot of property. Our curator of collections was kind enough to pull some lovely textiles that from the late 1880s, which kind of show it might be similar to what Abby would have worn, just to give a little more context to her life. So this is just a small glimpse into Abby's life. There is more research that can be done and more records that can probably tell us even more about her. But I hope this maybe has sparked an interest in coming into the Placer County Archive and Research Center to conduct some research. And I hope you've enjoyed getting a little glimpse into our storage facility.